Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm talking about the new Tati Beauty Blendiful sponge that just came out, and there's a large one and there's a tiny one which is shaped like a heart. I'll admit, when I first heard that Tati was coming out with a sponge, I wasn't that excited. And even when she showed it on camera, that first time we saw it, I still wasn't excited. But then I kept watching her video and I said, I'm really curious because Tati said that you can apply liquid products, cream products, and powder products with this sponge. So curiosity got the better of me and I bought this on launch day. So I decided to sit down on camera and try out the product in all of the ways that Tati said you can. And I'm going to do a side-by-side comparison where I'm using the Blendiful on this side and I'm using my normal tools on my other side. So if you want to see a side-by-side comparison of how this tool works with other tools on the market and to hear all of my thoughts, and I have a lot of thoughts for you, please keep watching. And before you do, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up and let's get started. So obviously I have nothing on my face right now. I have prepped my skin with all of my skincare, but I've left everything else off. So what I'd like to do is use the Blendiful on this side of my face, using all the products I normally use. And on this side of my face, I'm going to use my normal tools, which is the Beauty Blender and a bunch of brushes. And I want to see if the Blendiful performs just as well as my normal tools, if it performs better, if it performs worse. So I'll give you all of my thoughts along the way as I'm applying all of the products. So you get two products when you purchase the Blendiful. You get the large size, and then you get a baby Blendiful, which is shaped like a heart, which I think is really cute. This one, the large one, feels very soft. The small one is actually much firmer. Now, Tati says you can use the small one, especially for touch-up, so you can put this in your purse. And then if you're someone that gets oily or if makeup is collecting in the smile lines or in other lines, you can use this to blend it out and smooth that out. So I am going to try that later as well once I've had my makeup on for a while to see if this does blot away any oil or if I can smooth out the makeup where it's pooling. But I am going to start with this one. Obviously it's shaped almost like a triangle and there's a lot of real estate on here. It's quite large. For comparison, here is a beauty blender and obviously the Tati Beauty Sponge is much larger than this. Obviously, a beauty blender is much thicker. It's shaped like an egg, of course, and the point is much tinier to go into the inner corner for concealer. So I'll be curious to see what this does when I try to put concealer on. So I'm going to start by putting on primer because she does say that you can use this to press in a pore filling primer. So I have in front of me my Tarte Timeless Smoothing Primer, which I use every day, and I'm going to use the Blendiful to apply it here. So I'm going to take, not the pointed end, because I want to save that for concealer. I'm going to take one of the edges and I'm going to dip into the primer. So I have some primer on here and I'm going to apply it to my face. So now I'm going to use my finger, which is how I normally apply this product, and put it on the other side. So my first thoughts when using this, I felt like I had to press really hard to push the primer into my skin with the Blendiful, and I felt like I had to use more product. However, when I'm looking in the mirror side by side, this one feels like it actually pushed the product into my skin better than just using fingers. So I think I will be using this more to press in my primer. It's a very subtle difference. I won't say it's a huge difference, but I do feel like my pores are smaller on this side than on this side. I'm going to apply foundation next, and I'm going to use my Makeup Forever mixed with L'Oreal. And again, Blendiful on this side, I will use my Beauty Blender on this side because that's always how I apply these two foundations. So I have just a little bit on the Blendiful because I want to see how much product I actually need to apply this. I'm going to start with tapping motions and then I'll see if I can actually smooth it out as well. So I like tapping motions better. I just tried to swipe it and it took all of the product off. So tapping motions are better when applying the product. So I'm going back over what I just did, and it actually is leaving some streaks. It has to be a pressing motion, at least with these foundations. Now, obviously, these are foundations that I use all of the time. It could work differently with different foundations. That's one thing about beauty tools. Certain foundations just work better with brushes, work better with a beauty blender. So this could be another case with this, is it might work better with different foundations. I prefer the first coat I'm putting on versus when I'm going over it. I do think I'm using a bit more product, which a lot of people have said you're using less product, but I feel like it's not giving me as much of a full coverage look when I'm going back over it. And normally with my beauty blender, I go back over my foundation twice because the first time just gives me a very thin layer. This seems to be giving me a very full layer the first time. So I guess in that sense, you're using less product. Okay, on the other side, I'm going to use my tried and true beauty blender. This is brand new. I've only used it once. It's clean. So other side of the face. That's something I didn't do. Normally I put this on with my finger and then I blend it out. So I'm actually going to use this part of my chin like this. And I'm going to see if the Blendiful blends it out better when I put it right on my skin versus putting it on here first. That way works too. I actually think I prefer putting it on my face rather than putting it on the sponge first. So as I'm looking, this side has the 2 coats of my foundation with the Beauty Blender, which is what I normally do, and this side is using the Tati Blendiful. I think I like this side better. It looks smoother. This one looks a bit heavier and cakier. I'm curious. I'm going to take not the part of the sponge where I used foundation, but a cleaner part, and I'm going to see if that can press away some of the cakiness. It's not a huge difference, but it's not the way I want my skin to look. So I'm going to press it away. That is helping a little bit, but it's pulling some of the foundation off. So now I have a few bald patches around here. I don't think this is going to replace my beauty blender. I think this side looks much smoother. This side, I'm actually seeing my pores popping through, and this was the side where I thought my pores were looking better. I'm also seeing more streaks on this side, and if I'm looking at both, this side is stickier. It hasn't actually pressed the product into my skin. Final verdict for foundation, at least for these foundations, is this will not replace my beauty blender. But I'm going to try it with concealer next and see how that works. So I'm going to use the pointed tip. I will say I like the fact that we have this that we can put our hands through. That's making it really easy to hold it, so that's nice. So I'm actually pretty impressed with how this is blending in the concealer, especially in this area, the inner corner. I have very fine lines there, and I have not been able to find a tool that will not accentuate those. But as I'm looking at this, it has smoothed out those lines and they don't exist. I love that. It's pulling off my foundation on my nose. I'm not happy about that. But for the inner corner and underneath for concealer, this is working beautifully. Okay, Beauty Blender on the other side. So this is really interesting, and I think you can actually see this on camera. So I applied on this side with the Beauty Blender, and this side is brighter than this side. I use the same products. So I'm not quite sure why it's brighter, but I actually think this side looks more natural than this side. I'm seeing my fine lines there. Everything is pooling in them, and I hate that. But again, I haven't found a tool that allows me to make that look better, but this side looks awesome. So I'm going to use my Nars Matte Concealer for some spot concealing on the perimeter of my face. And again, Blendful on this side, Beauty Blender on this side. So far I am loving this product for concealer. It's pushing the product into the skin, and it's erasing my pores and my fine lines as it's doing that. I just put some concealer on my lip area, and I do have some big pores around the lip. And on this side, I can still see those pores. On this side, they are much, much smaller. So if you are someone who uses thick concealers and thick foundations, I'm curious to know if this might work better. I feel like it works better with thicker products. If it's a thinner texture or a thinner viscosity, like my foundation was, this doesn't do as good of a job of melding it into the skin, but for concealer, it is amazing. I am going to go into a cream bronzer next, and this is from Colourpop Beauty. I got it on a reduced sale, and I'm going to put this where I would normally contour and bronze. So this is with the Beauty Blender. This is with the Blendiful. This side looks much more natural to me than this side. The Beauty Blender applied this product much heavier and darker, whereas this one was a much sheerer application. When I'm looking in real life, when I'm looking at the camera, they look about the same, but I think I'm liking this side better. Tati says you can also use this with powder. Now Tati does a lot of baking. I do not bake my face, but I do put powder underneath, and I put powder over my whole face because I am oily and I don't want any of this makeup to move. So I'm actually going to use 2 powders, one under the under eye and one for the rest of the face. I'm going to start with this Makeup Revolution powder, which is actually a powder foundation, but I'm really liking this. I just bought it and it's doing another thing where it's erasing my fine lines. It's also a good brightening powder. This is a shade lighter than my skin tone. So I'm going to see if I can press this in and see if it looks good. So I actually really like that. It looks very smooth and it's not accentuating any of my pores. I never put powder underneath there with a beauty blender, so I'm just going to use my normal brush. This is a Real Techniques brush, and I'm going to put the same powder underneath on the other side. As I'm looking in this mirror, and you might be able to see it on camera, underneath my eye on this side, the Blendiful did a beautiful job of pressing the powder into the skin, and it looks really smooth. However, in this area of my face, it's looking much less pore-filled. I'm seeing more pores here, and it's looking a bit more reflective. So I'm thinking that, again, I'm liking this really, really well for underneath the eye, but as I'm going back to the rest of my face, I'm preferring my normal tools better. I'm going to use the Wet n Wild pressed powder from the Photo Focus line. I just bought this and I really like it, so I'm going to try again dipping into the product, and this will be what I use on the rest of the face. I don't see a huge difference, but if I'm being really nitpicky, I like the powder applied on this side of my face better with the Blendiful. It just, again, feels like it's much more natural looking, and it pressed the powder into my skin. I realized I forgot to apply highlighter, and I'm going to use this Colourpop liquid highlighter because this can be put over powder, so I'm going to try liquid highlighter, and then I'll finish up the rest of my face. So I had to use a different side. I switched to a side that was cleaner to work this into the skin. It's nice. So I prefer the liquid highlight applied with the Beauty Blender. But again, the liquid highlighter is a bit thinner in texture, and I just don't think the Blendiful does as good of a job with thinner textured products. So I'm going to experiment, and I'm going to use my Revlon powder bronzer, and I'm going to see if this applies the powder bronzer as well as it did the cream bronzer. I'm not sure if this will be a mistake or not, but let's try. This is working so beautifully with powders. I'm actually really impressed with this. I was almost considering not using this for the powder products that I normally use brushes for, but this is really nice. I'm going to put blush on next, and I'm going to use the Milani blush in Dolce Pink. I'm going to turn the Tati Beauty logo over, and I have a new clean side. That's cool. Okay, so I'm going to use my favorite portion of it, which is this triangular tip, and I'm going to apply the blush with that. I'm impressed. So when I finish blush, I actually like to take another brush that's completely clean, and I like to blend out the edges. So I'm going to try blending out on this side with my normal brush. And now it looks much more blended. Now I'm going to take another clean area of the Blendiful, and I'm going to try blending out the edges on this side. That works as well. I think I like blending it out with this better. I feel like it gives me more precise blending ability, and I think it's actually blending it better, but it did blend it out. I'm going to use highlight next. I'm going to use a Milani highlighter that just launched. I really like this one. So I'm going to use this portion of the Blendiful because I haven't yet used that. I really like that. I use a fan brush normally. This is a Smashbox one, so I'm going to try that on the other side. So they both look pretty nice. I think this one, which is the Blendiful again, has pushed the product in better than the fan brush, which is again surprising to me. So I put all of my face products on. I'm going to finish up my eyes and my lips, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to try, first off, washing this big one. And then I also want to try the baby blender and see if I get anything pooling in my fine lines here, if I can smooth it out, and also if I get oily at all throughout the rest of the day, if this can pick up some of that oil without disturbing the makeup underneath. So here's the finished makeup look. I've actually done a lot with my day. I'm filming this ending later in the day because I wanted to make sure my makeup had sat on my face for a while, because I want to try the tiny Blendiful to see if it does take off some shine. And I don't actually have much collecting in my smile lines right now. That's typically where my makeup does collect. But I do have something right here under my nose. So I'm going to try this to see if the tiny one does work as a touch-up tool. Okay, so again, underneath here, I always have makeup collect in this part of my nose. It's not on this one, oh, it's only on this one. And that picked off a lot of the oil. I like that. So I'm going to try to just press this onto all of my oily areas, which right now is the T-zone. And let's see if it takes off some of that oil without disturbing the makeup underneath. I'm impressed. That actually did a really great job of blotting off the oil that I have and not disturbing the makeup underneath. The makeup still looks really lovely. So I think I'm ready to give some final thoughts. I love this. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't think I was going to. I thought it maybe was going to be gimmicky, or how could it possibly apply better than all of the other tools that I've used on a daily basis for years. But I love how this works. Now, I will say it's not going to replace my Beauty Blender for foundation. That's the one place where I did not like how it applied. It was streaky, it was lifting foundation off, and it seemed to get a little bit more cakey on this side of my face where I was using this versus when I used my Beauty Blender. That being said, I'm going to be using this every day, especially this pointed tip for applying concealer, especially in the inner corner. I am still amazed none of my fine lines underneath here are pooling concealer, like they're not being accentuated. It's lovely. I also really enjoyed how this applied my cream contour, and I loved on this part of my face how it applied my powder. I don't think I'm going to be using this for powder on this area of my face where my pores are, because right now, if I look at my face close up, I can see my pores on this side, whereas I can't see them on this side. And this is the side where I used my brushes and the Beauty Blender. But I also really liked how this applied my powder bronzer and my powder highlighter. So, do you need this? If you use a lot of cream products, like cream foundation and cream blush, cream bronzer, etc., yes, I actually think you need this. I am amazed at how good my skin looks with this product. Now, if you use more liquid products that are very sheer and are not as thick, I'm not quite sure this is something that you would need. I think the Beauty Blender does a better job with thinner products. However, if you use a lot of powder products and a lot of powder bronzers, yes, I also think you need this because it just pushed the product into the skin so well. And I like the fact that you get 2 for $18, and this one is so petite that you could put it in your purse. Now, the one thing I'd say about this one, I don't envision myself just dumping this like this in my purse. I feel like I'd have to get something to put it in. So I wish the tiny one came with a little pouch or something, because if I'm using this as a touch-up tool, it's going to get dirty, and I don't want everything else in my purse to get dirty. I think the price is also really fair. A Beauty Blender obviously is $20. You only get 1 for that, and here you get 2. Now, obviously, I just bought this, so I have no idea how long it's going to last. I did wash it between when I put my makeup on and now. I used dish soap because that is how I clean my Beauty Blender, which is still very dirty. I felt like I had to use a lot of soap and a lot of hot water to get it to look this clean again. I tried using just regular shampoo, which is how I normally clean my brushes, and that was not getting all of the dirt out. So that's another thing. If you are someone that doesn't like to clean your tools a lot, you might not like this. I don't think I'd feel comfortable using this multiple days in a row because it got very dirty very quickly. Obviously, I was using lots and lots of products. I have no idea how long this is going to last. I don't know how often I'll need to replace it. I replace my Beauty Blender probably 3 times a year. I don't do it more than that, I don't think, because I keep mine clean. I clean it every single day. I don't think I'd want to clean this every day because, like I said, I had to take a lot of time to clean all the gunk off. And it's obviously wet afterwards, and you're not supposed to use this wet. So I actually blow dried this, and it worked fine to get it all nice and dry again. But when I put my makeup on in the morning, I don't have time to clean my tools afterwards because I'm running out the door to work. So I would have to come home, clean this, blow dry it, and make sure it was ready for the next day. That's a lot of work for me. So if I'm using it every day, I might choose to buy another set so that I have a few in rotation so I don't have to clean it every single day because it did take a lot of work to clean it. So another thing I did want to talk about is I was reading a bunch of forums when this product was first launching, and people were saying, why is Tati bringing out a puff? She never uses puffs. And actually, if you've been with Tati for any period of time, she has used puffs a lot in the past, and she was actually the reason that I bought this puff. This is from Vincent Longo. It's actually discontinued right now. It's much thicker. Obviously, it's a different size. I use this for powder only. I've never tried it for cream products, but I enjoyed it. So knowing that I had bought a puff in the past, I was curious to know, were there other puffs out there like this on the market? So I did a search, and there are. Linda Hallberg makes one, Creolin makes one. There's a few others that even have this same shape. Now, I've never tried those before. I have no idea if they're good or not. But there are other ones that are cheaper than this price tag. So if you're interested in trying a puff like this and don't want to shell out 20 bucks, there are others that are $10 and under or $15 and under. But ultimately, I think this is an absolutely lovely product. I love the tiny one. I love that it's shaped like a heart. And I think Tati did a beautiful job with this applicator. So I hope this video was helpful. I hope it gave you some ideas on how to use this as an applicator and also whether or not you needed to buy this product to begin with. If you like this video, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and please go ahead and subscribe. I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are, and I'll see you next time.